Dobar dan. It's great to be here. And I love digital. And I love this country. You have mountains, which we don't have. But here I represent you the true story of e-Estonia. I show you where we are at the current moment, what we will plan to do, and also give you insights to their cluster corporation and Baltic Sea region project, which representative I'm also here. But it really feels like the e-Estonia has been there for ages. But what these grandparents from the late 19th century didn't know, that the guys in 21st century make more money out of this digital business than from farming. And it really changes the way we are thinking. So I come from this, also a small country from northeast of Europe. And you can see that besides all these facts on the screen, we have a lot of influence from our neighbors. And especially I would like to point out Finland and Sweden. The investments coming from there, the mentality of this Nordic thinking is coming from there. And it also influences as a bottom number of digital sector, 7% of GDP. So what is a current journey I will take you through? We in Estonia consider that internet is a social right. So if we still have people on streets and fighting for something, this is coming for the freedom to have internet freedom as one of the top in the world, to discuss that what can be do differently that actually makes a change for the whole society. And this is what we also see as in terms of this e-governance, that we trust very much these e-solutions. And one of the first things that was made already in 2001 was, of course, this ID card or public key infrastructure-based services that they were given to all the citizens. But what was the trigger to use that? It was actually to replace it and use it as instead of passport. So everyone wanted to have it to travel. But now it has changed. If we talk about this e-governance, and of course, there are a lot of interactions with the government, but not daily basis. And the biggest advantage of this digital governance is coming out of this digital signature. And we know it's also existing in EU. It also is working with interaction with other countries, but still this has made the biggest effect. So what is the main outcome of this e-governance? To be honest, this is efficiency. It's not very easy to discuss that with bigger countries because efficiency can come out from different other topics. But for smaller countries, where you really see that you cannot have the same infrastructure, you cannot have the same level of services provided by humans, you need to go digital. So you have to make the change. And there are a lot of things that also can happen beside the savings of, for example, coming from this digital signature. It's also that you will see no queues, which is good. You can see that you can be a better tax collector, perhaps. And if you implement this i-voting, then you can see that you can do some other processes in a cheaper way as well. But this is not enough. So there are more principles we would like to implement. And there is also the principle once only. Why do the companies need to submit the data to different government offices while they can do it just once? So once only principle. If we design or if we implement a new law or legislation or some new service, the first thing about it is to become digital by default. And what we pay more and more attention is on the design. So how to design them more human-centric. And coming out of this, or openness, is also not open internet, but open data. So these are very hot topics that we work, and especially government working with companies, government working with organizations. Now we have to talk a little bit about technology as well. And this is a true map of the e-estonia backend, so the technology which is behind all the services. And this is called X-Road. And this is a data exchange layer that connects not only the databases or not only the government institutions, but you can see also the banks, the telecoms, other service providers. And what is the benefits behind that is that if, for example, there are some security issues and one of the database, one of the institutions is down, the other services can go up and running still. And it's all based on, let's say, two numbers, which dates back actually 30 years now. These are my personal ID number as first number and my company registration code. In every database, in every service, these are the two codes which are in use. And let's say this is one of the strongest points that we made already when we started planning of the e-services. It started even before that. And now let's talk about a little bit what is the background and what will be the future to be for such e-governance services. Of course, we have to take a look at the perspective of the smiling curve. So if we talk about the global value chain, and we are part of this in every day, in our every operations, what we do, that it's not only about manufacturing something, but paying attention also on the design, as I mentioned, marketing, services, and of course R&D. Because there is more and higher value that you can bring in when you sell products with, let's say, a better design, with better marketing, etc. And looking back to 20 plus years now, I think these are the four pictures which well describe that how was development of all these services. In 1996, we started Tiger Leap Foundation. The main idea behind that was to establish computers in every school to give the access for the children and the students to use a computer. In 2001, we introduced the ID card, which was a cornerstone for the e-services. In 2009, there were a couple of ICT cluster representatives in Singapore and agreed that let's have a plan for this e-Estonia. And it came live very shortly. And now we have also this e-residency. I will talk about that a little bit later as well, which is a new way of doing the global business. If we talk about other initiatives, then I just took a couple of examples. If we talk about the cooperation with the startups, then Uber, Taxify, Estonian-based company, it's not that we will have people or taxi drivers who are against that. They want to use them because it's very easy when you try, for example, Uber and Taxify, your taxes will be declared automatically to the tax office after each ride, basically. If we talk about this interoperability between the countries, and Estonian and Finnish Prime Minister have signed a memorandum of understanding that we will have the joint services. So, for example, if you are a Finnish citizen and you're having a vacation or a business trip in Estonia, you can already use their e-prescription that was issued by your doctor in Finland and use it in Estonia to get your medicine. Or we are talking about some new infrastructure projects, which is like this tunnel, like Eurotunnel, but tunnel under the Finnish Bay Area, Finland-Estonia Bay Area. It's one of the discussions also is Hyperloop, how to benefit from that. Or yes, we can also go on discussion how to develop the digital society services, because we also nowadays face a lot of challenges with all the legacy. Because in terms of IT, everything that is more than, let's say, 13 years old is too old. So there should be a plan how to renew the services, how to redesign them. So it's more like a new challenge that most of the countries still haven't faced. And which is great here in Slovenia. I love these e-cars. There are a lot of them where you can charge. We have also the network, so this is something that can be something mutual for us, something that we can do together. Or chatbot. This is just an example of one of the small cities, Tartu in Estonia, that they can use also the chatbots for interacting instead of officials. You can use the chatbot. So, summary is that the biggest challenge for us today is to fight for the right talent and capital. And I mean like the right ones. There is always a shortage of engineers, IT people. And about capital, just look at recently the news that most of the merger and acquisition deals that took place in the Baltics, they were backed by Chinese capital nowadays. But more important is that the capital should help the companies, or let's say, for example, the startups, grow in a way that there is some new knowledge, a smart capital involved. And this is the second way we have taken the way or road in our story to support very much the startup-minded developments. And tomorrow, for example, I will also hold a workshop, and I will go more in deep to tell you about how to build ecosystems, how to use the startup-minded ways to develop their businesses and also their new innovation. But these are just one of the examples, and yes, some of them are already unicorns. I don't know if they have a battle with these dragons, but still. And it's not that easy. This is a very simple way of describing that if you have in a starting phase, let's say there are very good students, very good startups who start with thousands of ideas. In establishing phase or in a going global phase, there are maybe like 16 or 5 of them who actually reach our. So this is like on one slide, the whole ecosystem of startup programs in Estonia. About e-residency. Yes, it was introduced already in 2014, and it's basically something that is based on the existing e-services, but gives the access to people who live outside of Estonia, who are not the nationals of Estonia, to use these e-services. Last week, even Bill Gates got their e-residency card as a gift for him for his birthday. And it's not that you will do the taxes differently or you can hide your businesses. It's very transparent. This is, for example, a company which has a capital coming in from Silicon Valley operates in Australia, in Africa, in Europe, and they can have the same digital signature platform to do the business together. And they can have the presence, for example, there are a lot of Ukrainian companies, some other nations' companies, which are looking for the access to the European market. And I'm definitely sure there are some other countries, and I'm sure that even Slovenia will do the same way, because this is a true way of being a global digital country. And coming back to the topic of infrastructure and technology, is everything should rely on the security. Security is one of the top topics for the future, and it should be about the integrity. So the blockchain technologies, it's very important to learn about them. About the availability, how to integrate and how to have the openness of all the services, and confidentiality. GDPR in Europe, but also public key infrastructure, etc. Blockchain, we see a lot of potential implementing it. It can be somewhere in e-health. By the way, I didn't mention you, but there are still 3 topics or 3 services you need to do this way that you cannot go online. One of them is to get married, to get divorced, and to buy and sell property. So even then, you have to go to see the officials. But blockchain, maybe it makes a change. Maybe something new coming on a market this way. And a couple of more ideas for you. Healthcare. We also see that when 1/3 of the budget of the country is dedicated to healthcare, then there is a lot of ways to see more efficiency. Digital health data, how to just more make this interaction between the hospitals, for example, more efficient. Education, of course. It was recently announced that we are, for example, having all the books and all the study materials online nowadays. And education is a key. As I showed you a couple of slides back in 1996, we already started with giving the computers to the school. Now it's time to work with the new generations in education way. And it's also something that we don't see at the moment, or what we would like to have is more like invisible services. So if the child will born, then you don't have to go to officials to announce that I have a child now. And officially, it will make like invisible services that all the government institutions will get to know that you have a newborn child. Or when you talk about this real-time economy, so everything becomes more and more real-time. So you don't have to work and see that what was the data before. And AI strategy. I more like the word of machine learning, but we are planning to have, for example, artificial intelligence strategy. And this is based on, let's say, historical artificial object called CRET, which is like very cultural way to do it, but it's really easy to explain it to the people, what is it all about, instead of talking about AI all the time. And here's my little hint for you how to do that. It's very simple way is to describe the bottlenecks. So it's not to start with even a strategy, but to see that where is the bottleneck, what is wrong, what we can do better. So find these ideas, and especially to have the cooperation between the public sector and the companies. Some of the local governments can be, for example, the test beds or living labs, or some of other companies can invest into this idea developments. A prototype. Prototype is really interesting. So do quickly what you can to have the first physical or something digital which is visible. and then to have the reference from public sector or from some companies. And as a small country, you always have to think globally. So for startups, we always tell that there is no market such as Estonia. There is a global market. So global attitude should be DNA coded from already in the beginning. As I'm also representing the ICT cluster here, so I just briefly mention you that for the 2020, we have the vision to work on the 4 major goals, to work with the society. We have a strong interaction with the society. We help the government and also the companies itself for other organizations help to build the services. We very much work with the labor force because we see a shortage of at least 6 to, 20,000 people every day. And we also work on the value-added processes. So how to use more efficiently the ICT. And this is where we do a lot of cooperation, internationalization, and etc. About DIGINNO, this is a very interesting project which is, has partners in 9 countries, 24 partners officially. This is a Baltic Sea regional project. And it will have a very interesting outcomes. First of them is about the toolkit for SMEs, because we are having lots of SMEs as well. And the toolkit is about how to digitalize the business. What are the simple lessons learned? What are the simple tools to use? It's informal platform for Industry 4.0 topics in Baltic Sea region. And by the way, there are also 4 prototype cases to develop cross-border. And these are just examples. So, for example, it can be paperless consignment notes. Some papers come along with the logistics. It can be something that is related to know your customer, about to get to know what is behind all these e-identities, and to leverage the usage of e-receipt or e-prescription or other e-services to other countries with the same standard. And also, it will also work very much together with all the governments in 9 countries to present a white paper on recommendations. What policy changes could be made to have the regional cooperation accepted? My 3 little key takeaways. When you start building ecosystem or a new e-service, for example, then it's good to take it as a value chain or process. This private and public and people partnership is really important. This is the key for every cooperation. And as I mentioned, though, think globally, but act locally. Try it in your way. We haven't been so successful to implement all these e-services with all the Estonian companies in other countries, but we have given the ideas how to do it, and hopefully you will also learn from it. So I will now. Yes. I have also one video to show it as a last one. So yeah. Yes.
There is a country with fast in its DNA. While a Tesla can supercharge in 30 minutes, a lot can happen here in the same amount of time. Register for e-residency and do business at cyber speed. Form a company in 18 minutes. Or file your taxes in 3. Cast a vote in seconds via the internet. We're also fast when it comes to new legislation, like when we legalized self-driving cars. We share the Tesla DNA. If Tesla were a country, it would probably be Estonia.
Well, thank you very much.
Een applaus.